Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmitty, Swanny and Clarkey visit crimes and run them through their jury of 3, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised.
All right, how are we?
Yes, I'm feeling okay. I've got a nice little soup to keep me going. For anyone who did listen to the last episode, I know a bit of a croaky thing going on.
Yes, well, you were coming down with that actually on the weekend, remember? The two of you complained about
I was.
being sick
Yeah, we
beforehand.
both were.
But you pulled through, and you
Yeah.
pushed through, and you oompa-loompa'd out. It was all very good. But yes, I wasn't
That
surprised
was
when you
very
said you'd been
good.
sick. Right.
Well, it's got to go one way or the other when you drink, I find. Sometimes it does kill it, and sometimes it makes it worse.
Yes.
You never quite know
Yeah.
which way it'll go. Sometimes you feel so terrible and you drink and it really does seem to kill it. And you think, oh my God, that was like miraculous. I should do that all the time. But it doesn't always happen that way, does it?
No, it's not a magic
but it's
cure
always
all.
worth trying just in case.
Indeed it is.
True.
All right, well, I suppose we should introduce ourselves. I'm Schmitty.
I'm Swanny.
And I'm Clarkey, and together we are
Trial by wine.
And what are we drinking?
Not
Oh.
wine.
Not
No.
wine. No. I want a Coke Zero.
Return
I've
to
got my
form?
veggie soup and
Nice.
the
Yeah,
beautiful
elderberry. Yeah.
elderberry
Oh, go spritz.
tonic in my soda stream. Delicious.
Lovely. Well, I'm the one holding up the alcoholic side, so I'm still drinking Brookvale Union ginger beers, and they're delicious.
How many have you had?
3.
3.
I went
Yes,
to
they're
a
almost
50th,
awesome.
not this weekend, but last weekend. And the drinks on offer were champagne or dark and stormy on arrival. And I thought, oh, I'll just have a champagne. And the husband sort of pushed me toward, my friend's husband was serving drinks. And it was so delicious, like the ginger beer and the rum and whatever else. I stuck with them all night. I actually wasn't too bad the next day. So I think sometimes just sticking with what you're on, but it was very enjoyable. I really do quite like ginger beer. I think you got me onto that, Schmitty.
No, I didn't. You drank it
Oh, I
somewhere
told
and
you
said
I don't know.
loved it. That's right.
It was the opposite.
then-
Yeah, we went on the True North. Yes,
On the True North. Yeah,
that's
I remember
right.
that.
It was the other way around. Yeah, but I
I
can't
was going to
remember.
say ginger ninjas, but was that
That's
what
what
they
it
were
was.
called?
It was.
Oh,
It
yeah,
was
right.
ginger beer, but I can't remember what else it had in it. But I do think that it's strange because I
Mm.
don't particularly like. Jeremy and I were having some soup the other day, and it had too much ginger, and it was like overpowering. But yet I really like ginger beer. It's become a bit of a. I don't drink it often, but when I do, I think, oh gosh, I forgot that I like this. So good on you for having some.
Who's got a story for us?
I do.
Oh, excellent. Haven't heard from you in a little while, Swanee.
I know, and it's a bit of a departure, certainly from the last story.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing gory. It's more of a
Excellent.
rollicking tale than anything, I think.
Oh, I love it.
And-
Hola.
I found it quite difficult to get
Facts?
dates and
Oh,
facts. So it's a little bit loose,
One of
but
those.
it's quite entertaining. So hopefully it'll be
Great.
good enough, close enough is good enough, and no one's going to be, it wasn't. I don't think anyone would care that much, but yes, it's quite interesting. Now, how it came about was we're currently recording during the Paris Olympics,
Mm-hmm.
and this story is, well, it's a French story, and it does have some Parisian content, I guess, which I'll have us looking at Google Maps at one point, of course, because I do like to incorporate a little bit of map work into each of my stories. But it does mean that some of the sources I struggled with a little bit, because some of the stuff, a lot of it wasn't actually the usual stuff was in English, which was, the usual 3 paragraphs that are shared on every website. But some of the French stuff was either conflicting or unclear, or I had to watch an entire documentary, which a lot of it was so French. Like, it was not like, an American documentary. They're like trying to give, set a scene or whatever else. It's more of them like thinking about things and telling you how they feel and, walking through fields and having a big old chat. And time was of the essence. I really didn't have time to do too much of that, but it gave you more of a sense of the people who are involved and their experiences. So I hope to share some of that with you. So in terms of my sources, I did use one YouTube source, which was called See Elise, and the episode was entitled The King of Escape. I also used French Wikipedia because this was not on English Wikipedia, and I had to have it translated, and it's not a fabulous translation, but I will try and use a little bit of it just for some of the details. 90s Anxiety was where I first saw this story, which is actually an Instagram page that I follow, and it had just loaded this story up, and I thought, oh my God, I must save that, which I did, because I thought the imagery, which was obviously, it will come into the story later on, was just, it got me. So I thought, I'll use that. There was another blog, I guess, I found called the Lesser Stories, which I guess this would be one of. I also referenced EXO Edition, which is a publication, a book that pertains to the crime. And that's about it. So they're my sources. So again, a bit of a weird one. There's no Daily Mail, although I could have found something on Daily Mail if I had have looked. And I have seen a couple of things on CNN, etc. But again, it's the same 3 paragraphs repeated with the same images. So there wasn't really much that you were sort of gathering from any of that. So today's story, unbeknownst to me, is about a somewhat common situation or crime, I guess, that occurs in France. Apparently, the French quite like to do prison escapes via helicopter. Now, I know this is not the first
it's silly.
story. This is not the first time we've covered it. Because when I started looking, I think, why is this ringing a bell? I have to tell you, if you look it up, I'll just find what it's called. If you were to Google prison escapes by helicopter, which is actually, you search that on Wikipedia, there's a long, long list by country, by prison, where the people have been escaping from. And apparently the French kind of like it, and it's quite common. So when I first started researching this story, the guy's name who I had, I'm like, who's this guy? That's somebody else. There's so many of them that they have a series of people who are the helicopter escapee.
Wow.
Who have been famous at different points in, somewhat recent history, sort of the back, obviously since the helicopter, but certainly the late 20th century and not so much recently, but, earlier in the 2000s. So who knew? They have a bit of a thing for it. I don't think we have a thing for helicopter
Not that I'm aware
escapes
of.
that I'm aware of, no. There was one that I could find, there's a couple of them, but Pentridge. They were 3 suspects all held on drug importation charges, hired a former SAS soldier, then living in the Philippines to live the prison. So it's not that it hasn't happened here, but, it's funny how, different countries end up with different things that, they're famous for or whatever else. But there you go. The French, quite partial to
their friend.
a helicopter prison break. Yeah. The story starts with our star, shall we say, a gentleman by the name, and let's see how many times I changed his name throughout this because I've got such a terrible habit. I put it on the wall in front of me and I still reckon I'll get it wrong. His name is Michel Vaujour, and he was born in 1951, January 16, in Saint-Quentin-le-Petit, and he is a former French robber known for having received 12 convictions, totaling 27 years in prison, including 17 in high security. This guy is pretty good at spending time in prison and getting sent to prison. As it turns out, he's also quite good at making attempts to flee. And that's why he becomes kind of famous. And then later on, I'll sort of talk about some other people and their experiences because they, as I said, it's a French thing. They want their liberté. They want to be free. They want to go out and they don't want to be confined in the restrictions of a prison. So Michel Vaujour was the son of a civil servant. And sadly, he was abandoned at the age of 4 by his parents. And at that point, he was sent to live with his aunt. And he had a really fabulous relationship with her, and she adored having him and pretty much taught him everything that he knew at a very young age because it came from a loving relationship. However, she died when he was just 8 years old. And at that point, he was returned to live with his parents. And his father was a violent alcoholic. So it was not a particularly great time. And to be honest, he sort of goes on and lives, a pretty normal life as a teenager. And it's not until later in his life that when he reflects on that he sort of thinks that actually it made him quite angry and wanting to sort of, he didn't want to be part of a community. He didn't, things like the normal rules didn't really apply to him, which as an older man, he can look at and see that that's as a result of his upbringing. He was a factory worker and a father by 18. So it all happened pretty quickly. And where things start to go downhill quite rapidly is actually just a situation where one night he's out and he's drunk and he borrows a car. He's so drunk, he drives the car home and goes to bed drunk and is woken up the next morning by his partner. I don't know if they were married, and the mother of his child. And the police are there saying, you've this car's stolen because it's been reported stolen.
I was wondering if borrowed meant stolen or
Yes.
if...
So out the window, he jumps and he runs away. Anyway, he gets they catch him. But it's not like done in the sense that he was. I mean, it's parked in the front, like in the front driveway. It's not like he's trying to hide it. He's gone to bed drunk. But he ends up having to do 30 months in prison for that.
30 months in prison for that?
Yeah, that's what it says in Wikipedia, Fred. That's all I can go on. So it does seem like an awful lot, but it does say that he was released from prison in December 1972, which I think was slightly earlier. But he was banned from entering 21 departments. The department's kind of like a little state, sort of what's exactly like a state within France. So I don't know how they chose the 21. There's no information on that. And I've seen it quoted a number of times because I suspect it's just one of those things that everybody then says. But there were some rules around his release. But I think he probably got out a bit earlier.
Just before then, thing about 30 months for taking a car home.
Yeah.
So I've had discussions with Reggie about stealing. And so in Victoria, it has to have an intent to deprive someone of something to be convicted of stealing. So it's not. So what he's done is, like you said, more or less borrowed someone's car. Sure, he's taken it without their consent.
Been a total moron, yeah.
But it's not like he's going to park in his driveway and change the number plates and spray it and make money off it.
No, it literally was probably parked badly in your front yard going, whoops.
Yeah, he's probably shocked that there's even a car at the front because he can't remember how he got home.
I wonder if it would have been different had he actually just walked out the front and gone, oh, God, I can't believe that, because he ran off.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have made it better, that's for sure.
2.5 years, though. Wow.
He was then hired as an aerial worker in an oil complex.
I thought you were going to say a little skill.
Where he was arrested one day for driving without a license. Fleeing. He keeps running away. He was arrested in Macron. Imprisoned, he escaped the first time, but he was arrested again after attempted burglary. And so what happens is, it starts to be this sort of theme where he absolutely is a burglar. In that sort of, we don't often talk about it anymore. I think it was such a crime of a different time when, there's so much internet crime now, or, other types of violent crime. This idea that people used to really get a lot of stuff stolen. People were always talking about cars and goods, and that's how people were able to steal things and then go and make money that way. Do you remember before the internet, right? It was, it was a crime of the time. It was just crime, centuries, but that's where you went to. I think now maybe you'd possibly try other avenues to, defraud people of money or whatever it is. In the old days, it was just, when I'm saying the old days, the 80s, it was like, rock up to someone's house or business and take what you can and try and
VCR.
Correct. Not petty, but not, he wasn't out to harm anybody or anything like that, but he became a seasoned robber, burglar, whatever you want to say. In prison, he escaped the first time. He was arrested again after attempted burglary. And at this point, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Again, he escaped. After several unsuccessful attempts, he then came up with an idea. This is one of my favourite things. So this is, again, one of those things that is so French. Do you know, of course you know what baby milk cheese is?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. With a little red wax seal.
Yeah.
So,
use them to make stashes of baby cheeses.
That's exactly what you make them for in Kath and Kim. You're so right. Well, what he did, they were obviously given them as a goûter, which is a little snack, in the prison. So he was clever enough to collect the red wax and he made it into like a ball, and he purposely had like a rumble with one of the guards, at which point, and this actually worked, it sounds like a hit up, he was able to forcefully press the red wax and the mini baby bells into pee to get like an impression. Then he had to go to Swanny confinement. It got into a lot of trouble and he got extra time. But as a result of that, he still wasn't in like a prison that was particularly high security. So they still had workshop and they did lots of things. So from that imprint, he was apparently went back to the other guys. He was like, don't worry, I'm going, but I've got it. We're good. Because he told what other people he was going to do. Like, he was a little bit of a hero in amongst the other inmates because he had this, we're going to get out, I'm getting out, I'm not staying here kind of thing. No, it's not for me. Give me some time, I've got away. So with that, he was able to then take the imprint, obviously after he'd served a bit of extra time in I don't know if it was solitary confinement, but some kind of additional punishment at that prison. And he made a duplicate key of his cell.
God.
Can you believe it? There I've got it. Having jostled a guard, he takes the imprint of the key from the bunch with the red wax from the crust of the Babybel and reproduces it with a piece of iron worked with a file and a hacksaw.
Just as well they weren't having laughing cow cheese instead of Babybels.
That's exactly
would've
right.
got
I like
nowhere.
that. That would be no use. We have just have
Nope.
foil. Or the little round box. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's impressive coming up with the idea of the execution. I'm like, that's great. Well
know, some of the-
done.
I
Some of
suppose
this
you got a
just
lot of
seems
time in jail
violent.
to think about how you're going to get
Yeah,
out.
but
Yeah.
to not get caught as like the guard didn't notice the Babybel wax being pushed against his key,
I know.
and to get the right key.
I
Maybe they're all
Don't
keyed
you reckon?
alike.
It just seems,
It's like something
I
out of
mean,
a film.
yeah, it seems like unlikely. It would have to be such a perfect, it would have to be someone of a perfect impression, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
To work
it would.
in a prison system, like a key. And like just to get the right angle. Anyway, apparently it worked. The next bit I don't quite understand. Again, as I said, it's sort of translated. He says the lock being on the outside, I presume of his room, remember, like his cell, so he's got the key to access it. He reached it after drilling with an immersion heater. I don't really know what that means.
Oh, an immersion heater is like a thing that you stick into like a
Like a little
maybe a
element.
fish tank or
Oh, okay.
there you go.
Oh,
it
so he
sits in
somehow
the
got
bar.
through that. Okay.
melted it or something with the immersion heater element.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh dear God.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, he's quite ingenious. In 1979, he escaped again by taking an investigating judge hostage. I don't know where that was. I presume it'd be in a courtroom and not in the.
Sounds like
I
it.
don't quite know. Maybe that's just a translation again of something we know.
No, because they like your prosecution and that.
Yeah.
Not
Oh,
just
we
in
use it.
France.
Yeah.
No, it's a
okay.
different system.
Yeah,
Right,
different
okay.
system where the judge does the
The
investigation
judge does
with
the
everyone and
investigation.
makes
Yeah,
a
so
decision.
they don't
I
have to
didn't
be in
know
the
that.
courtroom. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they've got a quite a
Okay.
different
Well,
system.
anyway, okay. So in 1979, he escaped again by taking an investigating judge hostage, whom he held up with a soap gun blackened with shoe polish.
Is it made
This
out of
guy would
soap,
be
yeah.
a master with Play-Doh. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Imagine what he could create in that.
He's a
Oh,
good little
Oh.
whittler.
A little whittler. I like it. I think maybe he was actually on the lam for quite a while. At this point, he entered into organised crime, and there's different references I've seen where he became associated with organised crime, both in the clink and outside. So at this point, I think he's got a couple of contacts, so to speak. And he seems to be incredibly popular with people. Like, I'm not talking about the general public at this point. I don't think they're particularly aware of him. But he doesn't seem to have people after him. He seems to embolden other people with these ideas that, come on, let's go rob this bank or let's go break out or we can do that. Come and join me. Like he's a bit of a leader in that respect. People kind of get on board. Anyway, so he entered organised crime but was recaptured at the end of 1984. Now, this is where the story gets a little bit more interesting. And this is where we introduce another character, and her name is Nadine Vaujour, and she's actually his wife. So not the first woman that he was with, that he had the baby with at the very beginning. Once he left there, I don't think he went back. But he does meet this woman, Nadine Vaujour, through his organised crime connections. And I actually think it's the sister of someone that he'd met in prison. So she's no stranger to, a kind of
Naughty
savory,
guys.
naughty guys and, the saucier side of life. She's seen a thing or two, but she falls head over heels in love with Michel and vice versa with Nadine. So let me tell you a little bit about what Nadine did, because her husband has been sent back to jail again, and she's thinking, well, I don't know that I really want him in there. There must be a way that I can help. And so Nadine, for her part, decides that she's going to be a fabulous accomplice and a fabulous wife. So what does she do? She starts a campaign outside the prison, or outside in Paris, to learn how to fly a helicopter. So she gets a message to him in prison that says, I'm going to come and get you, and I'm going to do it on this day. And it's so far in advance, unbelievable. Like she's not in a hurry. She's not doing it. It's a bit like Sharon. She knows that she's got to take her time to do this. And if she's seen to be hurried or uncool or whatever else, she's got to really be able to be laid back about this in terms of having the lesson and having access to helicopter, etc. So what she does is she gets a message to Michel that says, on such and such a day, I'm going to come and I'm going to get you out of the prison, which apparently for French people seems pretty common. So it's not like he's going to be going, hey, don't be ridiculous. He's like, but of course you are. So at that point, she starts taking flying lessons, and it doesn't take her very long to get her license. I think that happens in a matter of months. But then after that, what she does is bi-monthly, she hires a helicopter, which is expensive. It was like 315, I don't know if it was dollars or euros. It wouldn't have been euros in the day. It would have been francs, but maybe it translated to $315 an hour for 2 hours each time. Twice. So it was expensive for her to do that, and always paid in cash. I don't know if she used a name, but no one was suspicious. And so that was what she did. She was getting ready for this mission. Now, inside, Michel had befriended a guy called Pierre Hernandez, and Pierre and Michel were busy themselves. Arts and crafts, these guys, you know what they're like. They've got to be making something in there, right? So what are they making? So at approximately 10:30 a.m. on May 26, 1986, a helicopter flew low over central Paris.
Yeah,
Map time, people. Let's get our maps out.
Love this.
I looked at this because I wanted to know just how central it was relative to what we would know in central Paris, or what, Joe Blow would know. So the name of the prison, La Santé, L-A, or Paris La Santé, L-A-S-A-N-T-E.
Okay, yep.
Right?
I
So
got
if
it,
you get
yep.
there. So, and then may do directions to, and I put in the Eiffel Tower. And you'll see it's not far from the Jardin de Luxembourg. It's actually pretty darn central. Montparnasse is here. It's
Montparnasse, yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So if you're in a helicopter, you're pretty central. You won't really, she wasn't out in the sticks by any stretch of the imagination. She'd be definitely flying over those lovely Parisian rooftops that are so, we're so familiar with. So unsurprisingly, air traffic control went nuts. Can you imagine?
I was going to say, how did they shoot her down?
I can't believe they did. Oh, no, she just... It makes me laugh because the image of it, which I would like you to look at the end, it's what my kids used to watch, this cartoon. And in the cartoon, there was a yellow helicopter called Whirlybird. And it looks like that. It's just a very fine little white helicopter. Like there's no big structure to it. It's like, the very front was all glass, not much metalwork. Do you know what I mean? Like just probably the smallest helicopters there are, really, in some respects. Anyway, imagine that flying over central Paris. Everyone going, hey, stop. Arrête, please, stop, respond or something, nothing. So Nadine Vaujour ignored a hail of radio warnings and brought the machine to a hovering stop.
She's ignoring them. She's breaking every law. She doesn't give a shit.
Over the roof of one of the prison buildings. The warnings over the guards' radios of a helicopter on the roof were eclipsed by a far more intense situation developing inside the walls. And eventually, Vaujour and Hernandez emerged from an access door and jogged unchallenged across the roof. Why were they unchallenged?
What's going
He had a
on?
smoke gun.
Why weren't the prison guards shooting? There was not a shot mate.
know.
What they did was, minutes before the two men appeared on the roof, and French prison guards aren't known to hold their fire, apparently. It sounds like the Victorian ones. They're certainly not. They aren't known to hold their fire during an attempted escape, especially one that involves a helicopter hanging out over their heads. The Vaujours were well aware of this. They had tried to work out a way that they studied other helicopter
Breakouts?
sort of escapades. Yeah. As I said before, helicopter escapes are bizarrely common in France in the latter part of the 20th century. They knew that guards would need a really compelling reason not to open fire, and the escapees made sure they had one. So escapees made sure they had one.
Mm.
While the helicopter flew over the prison, the guards were far more focused on another report coming over the radio. Two inmates, Vaujour and Hernandez, had apparently managed to smuggle in a number of grenades and now were threatening to detonate them if they were approached. So the grenades, they've got them, and the whole time they're threatening, our Vaujour and Hernandez are our guys on the roof. They're threatening, if you come in, we're going to detonate our grenades. The grenades it was later revealed, nectarines. From the prison cafeteria.
I'll detonate my nectarine if you can.
Which are painted green. Vaujour and Hernandez made a point to pause frequently as they made their way to the roof, menacingly waving their fistfuls of fruit at the pursuing officers. Just ridiculous, isn't it? With the threat of explosives, the two men are presumed to have more explosive on board the waiting helicopter. Not a single shot was fired. It's at this point that Michel is able to scramble up and he grabs the runner of the helicopter and eventually managing to sew himself in. Hernandez, and I've read and heard two different versions. One of them says for reasons unknown he changed his mind. The other one was that Nadine wasn't entirely sure of who it was, so she was like, "Who's that? I don't know who that is. I'm only really worried about my husband.
Out of here. Yeah.
You're out of here." So it's one or the other. Who will know? In this version, it says that he quietly sort of just surrendered
Slunk
to the
away.
authorities. Yeah, there you go. Oh, don't worry about me. On second thoughts, never mind.
I don't even know how I got on the roof.
I
What?
know, right? So why am I holding this nectarine? Oh, it's gone.
What's with the green nectarines?
Green.
Oh, well, they were very
Don't mind me. And then the helicopter disappeared from view and the Vaujours were away.
unbelievable.
It is. It doesn't even seem, it's
not
like
Paul.
this so often. Yeah. So many times we look at these crimes and it takes one little bit where someone had a bit of luck or really no luck
Yeah.
or whatever. This is just ridiculousness every single turn. You go, oh, come on. So now, again, you're quite right, Clarkie, still over the Paris rooftops. Off they go. No one's got. How does that work? Has someone not at this point gone, that's gone into a prison, the one we've been asking to stop, maybe we'll follow it out of it. Anyway.
Yeah. Let's do something
just
more
got
than
that,
just
the
watch.
French reaction. Swanny, visual French reaction.
Mm,
The downturned mouth. Je ne parle français.
The remainder of the escape was picture perfect. Nadine flew the helicopter to a nearby athletic field and the pair disappeared into a waiting car.
Wonderful.
They remained at large for more than 4 months. That's on the lam, isn't it? I need to check that every time.
Yeah.
Even managing to pick up their 2 daughters, because at one point when he was out of prison, he'd had one child with Nadine, he had a
Family
second.
affair.
They went and got the kids.
What?
Hang on, I've just got to get
And I
out of jail
think-
so I can pick up the
I
kids.
think the kids were the grandparents. It just feels
Oh,
like
God.
that's fine. Please, if this story and I've been totally led astray, I apologise because I just can't even believe what I'm saying. Because apparently they had been under surveillance, but somehow they got the kids out. So they picked up the kids, throw the nose of police surveillance. The breakout did make headlines around the world as French police presumably were forced to award Vaujour some sort of gold star for actually completing his 5th prison break
Oh my
of his
God.
career.
Wow.
What happens next again is pure Vaujour. The couple went back into Paris. They didn't leave Paris, where, they'd just escaped from prison and she'd been living with us. Oh, no. They made their way to a prepared hideout. And it was 3 months later, I think, which must have taken a while for them to go back to the house. It was over 4 months. They were apprehended by police in the early morning. I'd read somewhere, and it was actually done as a joke, which said that they were they'd opened a coffee shop. And then so I was like, just kidding. Of course they weren't. They were committing a robbery. And they had committed a robbery the day before. They were caught while robbing a bank. Second time in, it was actually 3 days, which is, again, they're just so emboldened. They're just, nothing seems like, oh, we might give that a break or we might go somewhere else. No. Business as usual.
No.
Business as usual. Now, in a shootout with police, Michel took a bullet to the head.
Oh, to the ear or to the head?
No, to the head,
Oh my God.
which he somehow survived, obviously, because I talked about him later on. He'd been in 5 prisons and a little bullet to the head wasn't going to take him down either. He was in a coma for several weeks. And at that point, they were able, before he went into coma, I think obviously at the very beginning, they didn't actually know that the people who had initially got him in the bank robbery didn't know that it was Michel Vaujour. It was only when he's been shot, he's got into the coma, and they've taken his fingerprints in the hospital, they've actually realised who they've got.
They
didn't actually know that to start with.
God.
I had, again, seen somewhere else, but I couldn't verify, I can't verify any of this, let's be honest, that they'd had plastic surgery.
All right. Yeah.
Oh, no, and I've seen pictures of it. It doesn't seem obvious to me.
Maybe just like baby bell wrappers that were skin tones, mold that's even a big nose or
Just
big
prosthetics.
chin.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So after coming out of a weeks-long coma, he was tried and convicted and returned to a maximum security prison. In the shootout with the police, he did have a gun, he was armed, and he did shoot a policeman in the stomach.
Ah.
3 times. The policeman, I think the policeman survived, but he was
Still could
was
have
attempted murder there. So
Yeah.
things had the ante had
Things
been
have
up somewhat.
escalated,
Things
yeah.
have definitely escalated. What happens now? Now he's in prison, I think they put him in for, again, can't remember, don't know, 20 years.
As long as they could keep him.
Yeah.
It's important. I think this is quite funny too. And I haven't been able to see these movies, and I don't know that I will. I might have a look. But that escape has inspired a movie that Beatrice Dalle is in, and it's called La Fille de l'Air, I think, which is the girl in the air. When he comes out of the coma and before he's sent off to prison, he actually had lost his movement down one side.
Oh.
So he's not well.
Was
And
shot in the head.
He has. There's a word here I've never heard it, but I think it's to do with having one side. You probably know what it is, and if I read it, it makes sense. Hemiplegic, which just means hemisphere, I guess. Hemi-side, hemiplegic. So one side, his limbs don't work. Where does he go from here? Well, he goes back to prison, but obviously there's a lot of rehab involved, and he starts to get heavily into yoga and meditation, and he credits that with helping to heal himself. And he ends up becoming, I don't know that he's got full range of movement in both sides, but he's certainly able to walk, and he's not, he can use his limbs. So he starts down a slightly different path. But what now? Where is he? So now wait,
there's more.
There's more. It's more.
Yeah.
There is more. Now I've got to find other people's names and other things that happen, because there is a little bit of another part of the story. And now Wikipedia offers me nothing. This is other stuff that I've found. Nadine and the 2 kids. What's happening there? Well, Nadine goes to visit him in jail, and he says, I've got a fabulous idea, Nadine. I've got another escape plan. And she says, no, not interested. I'm not doing that. I've got 2 kids. We've got 2 kids. I'm out of here. And she leaves, and apparently he's never seen the kids again. I find that hard to believe, but that's the end. That's kind of the end of Nadine. She's like, I don't want it. Don't want this life anymore.
Done,
I'm going to go and be a mum now. Thank you, but no thank you. And I believe at that point, or sometime thereafter probably, she does go on to write a novel, and she's on the TV circuit. She's Nadine Vaujour. And actually, if you Google it, quite often her name will come up first, because it's the wife that, did the helicopter. Yeah. So a lot of the information kept leading back to her, and I wanted more on him. So I imagine within French society, she must have a pretty big profile. They probably both do, but she certainly does, as well, as she was the wife that was the greatest wife in the world to go and learn how to fly a helicopter.
I think it's pretty impressive. I don't think I would have
get your hubby out.
Commitment. That would have been in the wedding house, though, surely, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah.
In health, in jail, and in helicopters.
Can I fail to break you out? Yep.
Yeah.
You can rot there.
So whilst he's now in prison,
you do the crime, do the time. Yeah.
This prison experience is very different to the others. Now he's in a high security prison, and they're
he's tried to kill someone.
Yes, correct. Yeah. And they can't have any more egg on their face. Like, that's just it. So again, this seems like it's an exaggeration, but I've read it in a number of different sources that he was in solitary confinement, and I've heard him say it, that he was in solitary confinement for 17 years.
Oh,
is that a thing?
That sounds
look, I have heard of certain people who've been in solitary confinement, but how you don't go mad like within 5 minutes?
Not on Robben Island.
17 years.
No.
Is that where the man from the Iron Mask was?
No, that's South Africa. That's
Nelson
Mandela.
Oh,
the man from the Iron Mask. I was on that island recently. That's Ilse Marguerite off Cairn. So I was there about 3 weeks ago. The man in the Iron Masks were telling about my children, but the children were telling about that. So where things take a sort of a turn here is I've watched an interview that Michel has given, and he talks about life inside a box. He sort of says you have to kind of give up everything. You have to stop thinking. How do you do this?
Insane. You go insane.
Yes.
Yeah.
He says you can't miss
cruel.
anything. He said, don't talk. He uses an example. He goes, coffee. He goes, coffee. That's things, that's irrelevance. That means nothing to you. He does say it's things like someone touching you. And he said, there were guards. And he said, but I had nothing to do. I didn't even speak to the guards. I don't even know that he really spoke. But I don't understand if it was 17 years consecutively and nothing that no one ever saw him. That's kind of the way it's presented. But is that possible? I don't know.
Would you forget to talk after 17 years? I feel like I would.
You would think he would. So he says he sort of shut himself in silence. He takes refuge in practicing yoga. So again, I can understand that would become a really important thing.
Yeah.
And as I said before, meditation. So the days are long, but I mean, God, that many
It's
years. I
horrendous.
don't know how that all works out.
Horrendous. Yeah.
He's lost his wife. He's lost his children. He has no contact with anybody anyway, so he really has nothing. And it's around this time that a woman on the outside, it's always a woman, a young law student by the name of Jamila, actually sees his wife, Nadine, on an interview, and she starts to find out that's quite interesting, and she wants to meet him. So she undertakes to work inside the prison that he's at, this high security prison, and she goes in there under the guise of teaching Spanish. So I think this is in 1991. She manages to get inside this is a story. I can't believe it's not a movie. She manages to get inside the prison.
Are you sure it's not a movie? But anyway.
Well, again, I could be making it up. I could be dreaming. This is so ridiculous.
You could be writing
and
the
this is the
story
problem
as
when
you
this
go.
was all coming together. I was like, I can't verify this. This can't be true. This sounds like I'm just bullshitting. Yeah. So she gets into the prison, obviously, to teach Spanish. She's not going to teach the guy in
solitary confinement
Spanish. Yet somehow Jamila makes her way to meet Michel Vaujour, and they strike up a conversation and a friendship. And then as a result of that, they become pen pals. I think then what happens is he then starts, she's a young lawyer, and I suspect with her involvement and lead, he starts to become aware of laws changing in France. And this might be something to your point, Schmitty, which was how a judge investigates a crime. And I get the understanding that historically, they could just say, yes, you're guilty, or no, you're not. And now something was required where they had to give a reason, which sounds far-fetched to me, but that was the simple way that it was presented. So he figured based on that, there might be grounds for him to contest his sentence. And again, because the laws had changed or were changing, and they do change. So I think with Jamila's influence, and they're obviously Berger, they start to have a relationship.
Of course they do.
While he's in solitary confinement.
not a sexual relationship.
I was going to say, as good as it could be while you're in solitary confinement.
Yeah, jeez.
So when it comes time for him to be assessed, it would appear that he has a new wife. He's been able to marry Jamila with the permission of her parents, although at the time when they were married, he still potentially had 20 years served because he converted to Islam for her.
Oh.
So he has a new wife, a new religion. He does have the yoga. He does have the...
Did he get a divorce?
I guess she must have divorced him. That would
must have done. She dumped him.
Must have done. Yeah.
Other wife said, piss off, I don't want anything to do with you. You're bad news.
They allowed her to marry him after they had one unsuccessful attempt at getting him out. So she actually served time herself.
She tries
right.
No.
I can't believe I forgot that bit. Oh my God. There's just too many prison escapes or attempts. Right. So we Jamila, who was the law student, who goes in, meets him, she approaches him, she wants him. She then, with him, they hatch a plan. It's unsuccessful, but in being caught, she serves time. He's continuing to serve time. She does her sentence. They still want to be together. He converts to Islam. They are married. And then by the time it comes time for him to go out, she is a lawyer.
Well, when you said the parents allowed, I'm thinking, what was she, 12? Like, what does she need parental approval?
But she still becomes a lawyer too. So even after her crime, she becomes a lawyer after that.
You're allowed to do that. Well, I suppose the president of the USA could have a
you can do whatever you like. This is what I feel like you're all going, this is the worst research, most ridiculous story I've ever brought to the table. And I think you're probably not wrong. It just beggars belief. So he is released in 2003. He and Jamila still now live in Paris. And there's footage of them now. You can actually see more stuff now on like TV talk shows. And they look like a very respectable couple. Yeah. And he, in this like documentary that I started watching, which was, oh God, it was so French. It was insane. It was just all about these beautiful thoughts, all these feelings, and it was incredible. He's just this very calm. He says, he found love, and love is everything, and he's able to reflect on his youth and how that impact on his life. And a quote from him. So he's got a book which is called L'amour me sauve du naufrage, which translates to
in again, out again.
Love saved me, which is what I from sinking. Love saved me from sinking. A book of rare power on the meaning of life The Price of Freedom, and The Strength of Feelings. This is the story of a child abandoned at a very early age. Then the story of a teenager marked for life by the feeling of injustice. At the age of 19, Michel Vaujour borrows a car to go dancing. He's arrested and sentenced to 2.5 years prison. He will suffer this verdict as a terrible injustice. From then, Michel Vaujour goes to war against society. He escapes the first time and shifts to crime.
Is that what you call
He
it?
commits robberies on the run multiple times. As soon as he gets caught, he prepares a new escape. In 1986, from the roof of the prison de la Santé in Paris, he clings to a helicopter and disappears in the skies of Paris. 4 months later, during a robbery that goes wrong, he takes a bullet in the head. His survival is miraculous.
He takes a bullet in the head.
Having become the terror of prisoners' directors, he returns to prison higher security units, complete isolation, in a concrete cell without any daylight. Shutting himself in silence, he takes refuge in practicing yoga. But a law student, Jamila, will turn his life upside down. She writes to him every day. They decide to try a new escape, to live together at the end of the world. The operation fails. Jamila is sentenced to 7 years in prison. When she comes out, she convinces him to draw a line under his summary logic. For the first time, Michel Vaujour agrees to let go and trust. An exemplary detainee, he finally goes out the front door. He is 52 years old. Today, after 27 years in prison, including 17 in high security units, Michel Vaujour breathes life with the one who has since become his wife and decided to write his own story. The story of a life, a
Very
man's
dramatic.
truth, an incredible story. Sometimes a wound from childhood can change the course of your life. It dragged me into the infernal spiral, robberies, and many times on the run, 27 years in prison and 5 jailbreaks. And then, when I thought I was dying, love saved me from sinking.
Love conquers everything.
Okay.
I reckon that's why it didn't get made into a movie, because he wrote that book with such a shit angle on the whole story. If it was told more like yours, it would totally be a movie.
Oh my God. So, I'm glad that you're using that as an angle because I've got one last little piece of anecdote, which is not Michel Vaujour's story. It is a story of one of France's other
What? Another one?
helicopter escape, because I told you there's so many.
There's
of them.
millions. Yeah,
And
yeah.
this one kept coming up when I was searching because this is a recent story. And I was getting really confused to start with going, that's not the name. I don't know who that is. But again, this is just so French. That's
So
why I wanted to
French,
share
yeah.
it with you. It's the French angle that I'm after here. And there's a word that I've been aware of, but I didn't know that I knew, and now I want to be able to use it. And the English title, it's actually a Financial Times that this article is in.
Right.
and under the
sense.
category of French society. And the headline reads, Notorious French robber blames ennui for helicopter jailbreak.
Yeah. I was just
Ennui.
bored. I was just bored.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
I Googled the meaning of ennui so I would have it. And it's spelled ENNUI. And it's the French word to mean listless, weariness, dissatisfaction, boredom. It's like the blase, apparently. So when you're feeling a little bit ennui, then you think, I think it's time to, orchestrate
Escape.
a helicopter prison break.
It's the only thing to do. Yeah.
I love this. Sequestered in a glass box in a heavily guarded Paris courtroom. I don't know how to say this, guys. I think you'd pronounce it. Redouane Fayed talked animatedly with his lawyers to plot strategy during his trial for an infamous prison break in which he escaped in a helicopter. In a sign of notoriety, about 100 journalists were on hand for Fayed's first day of testimony, in which he spoke confidently for more than 4 hours, displaying regret, defiance, and flashes of humour that prompted a rebuke from the judge. My addiction to liberty has consumed me, Fayed said in a clear voice
My addiction to liberty.
as he apologised for dragging loved ones into criminality.
In fairness, most people are addicted to liberty. You know.
It has caused major damage in my family, and I take responsibility for it all from A to Z. 2 of his brothers and 3 nephews stand accused of helping in the escape, along with 6 other defendants.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's crazy. And there was one last thing that I wanted to end with, which was Fayed stands out for having cultivated his fame by co-writing a memoir in 2010.
Here we go. I've written it down.
Titled how would I pronounce Braquier Robber, in which he described his rise from a small-time criminal in a rough neighborhood to the top ranks of so-called grand banditism in France.
I'm a grand bandit.
Yes, the avowed movie buff, to your point, Clarkey, who took inspiration for his hold-ups from films such as Heat and Reservoir Dogs, hoped the book would open doors in cinema. He wanted to be a movie star. A smooth talker with a bold pat and dark eyes, he had vowed that his criminal days are behind him when he went on talk shows to promote the book. My demons are not asleep. They are completely dead.
Sure.
Well, we know that's not true. And then the last little quote that I want to leave you with was...
We know that's not
the
true.
last thing that he said. He talks, in the courtroom, the judges probed Fayed on what drove him first to steal and then to flee. Was it the money, the adrenaline, the glory? For once, Fayed appeared at a loss for words. It was an infernal spiral, he said slowly. In the concrete sarcophagus of my cell, I felt I could do not any differently. The ennui provoked the escape. And that, my friends, is my very French Parisian story of helicopter escapades, particularly Michel Vaujour and his wife Nadine. And latter, second wife, or maybe third wife, I don't know, Jamila.
Love it.
Voila!
Excellent work. Excellent work.
That was anything but excellent work, but I think it's a rollicking tale, right?
Goodness me. I'll tell you what, because you know that the second one you spoke of, and you said it was more recent. Do you know what year it was?
Like very recently. I think he's been in court again in the last little while. 23, yeah. October 2023. Wow. France's jailbreak king gets more jail time. Notorious French gangster stands for helicopter jailbreak. French jail robber. So there's loads of stuff on him, but again, wrong person for me. And then there's a couple of others, one of them called Pascal Payette, and he's quite handsome. Have a look at him. He's from 1962. I was like, oh my God, who knew?
Because when you were talking about the first one, I was thinking, God, it's so of its time, that big, bold 80s kind of,
yes.
Would fly in a helicopter. And I thought, oh, surely nowadays that stuff doesn't happen. But, wow, maybe it does.
I don't know. And he actually did it when he went to court for it. I don't know if that was in 2018. He had been in a prison's visiting room when three men burst in and got him, onto the aircraft which had landed in one of the prison courtyards. So that was in 2018. So that is recent.
In a prison visiting room. Wow.
5 years earlier, in 2013, he escaped from another prison in the north of the capital using explosives to blast through 5 prison doors, taking 4 prison wardens hostage and escaping in 2 getaway cars.
Were they explosives or were they nectarines?
Nectarines, yeah.
The French prison guards are a bit shit, aren't they?
Nectarines.
God.
I don't really understand the nectarines as grenades because they're small.
A self-confessed freedom addict.
They must have been painted to look like grenades.
They're probably
and maybe
green,
had little
but they're quite small.
Baby bell prosthetics on them.
Oh, God, the baby bell prosthetics. Just the baby bell, the use of that, the wax is just crazy.
That's genius.
What have you found now?
His brothers took a helicopter pilot hostage. That's how they did it. They didn't waste their time learning how to fly.
That's what's her name did for Vasily.
That's right, yes.
She
hired someone and said,
fly,
you're going to fly this way. Yeah. It seems the most sensible way to do it rather than learn how to fly yourself.
Oh, there's so many people involved in here. So it's like 3 armed accomplices let off smoke bombs to confuse guards in the prison. One of them, identified as Fayed's elder brother, Rashid, used a disc grinder to cut through doors leading to the visitor room. Do they not check what you've got on you?
No, I just walked in with a cordless grinder, no problem.
I'm surprised it didn't just roll in the old wood chipper.
Sorry, mate, the scanner's not working today. We're not going to be able to do any metal detecting, but just bring those 7 backpacks in. You'll be fine. We trust you.
You're like this.
All my Ryobi tools and charged
Fayed had been receiving a visit from another brother, Brahim. Inmates of the cell cheered as the helicopter took off with its new passenger, with the operation taking just 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes.
Wow. Does it take long to break out? All the planning that goes into it.
Brahim told the court he had no idea about the plan. He was acquitted. Wow. Crazy.
I was going to make I was just visiting. Next thing I know, someone's breaking in and they've got an ankle grinder.
My other brothers are bad guys. I'm a good brother.
Yeah, I'm not. Ask my mother. She'll tell you I've always been the good boy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Don't know why I'm in jail. Wow.
What do you reckon?
I don't even know what
What
to.
silliness was that? What silliness was that?
I feel like there's a lot of no harm, no foul.
I don't know.
They've
I
all
mean,
done their time.
well, eventually they did their time, but they had a good crack at not doing their time.
That's true.
I feel for the policeman.
Yeah, it was all funny till someone got shot. And I
Yeah,
don't
correct.
mean Shell. I mean a relatively innocent person doing their
I'd
job.
like to find information on Michel Vaujour to see how she was able to practice. Oh, we'll get a law degree or we'll get another.
I don't know. I
I'm falling
mean,
French, I think.
you're going a bit too deep for us, Swanny. You're going to have to get your
Yes.
Google Translate out. Yeah. Je suis désolée, je ne parle français.
She specialises in the publication of legal books.
Oh, there you go.
She gives us an original, poignant testimony to the life of women in prison. I bet she does.
She would know.
Mm.
I don't know, because to me, it's not like the Greek one where the Greek guy was like a Robin Hood.
Yeah.
I just think this is, I mean, there's a ridiculousness, but these people were self-serving as well. He must have MP of another nature, though, because every woman he comes across, is quite happy to help try and break him out of prison. He must be a very charming man.
It's so common though. I feel like for some type of women, like they've got like a sitting target, like a man who can't go and sleep with other women or turn them like that. And so they feel comfortable or safe, or I guess they feel love. I don't think so. I think it's more the security thing. If someone's locked up, they can't go and do the wrong thing by me.
Maybe.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe
they
a
might have
project too.
Yeah.
I'll get him back on track.
By breaking him out of
Absolutely.
prison and getting myself locked up in the process, that works.
Right, my God. I must say, the 30-month, 2.5-year sentence seems bad. He seems to have had his whole angle around that for his story. If it wasn't for that, none of this would have happened. I'm not sure that's entirely correct.
It is true, because he could concentrate on other highlights of his career, like his Baby Bill work. And yet, with his novel, that's exactly right, Clarky. He's very focused on that, where this started, where it bloomed from. And yes, it does see he seems a bit hung up on that, where he could clearly work with Baby Bills.
Yeah, he's telling a tale in his book of woe is me, rather than the grand adventures that I've had and all of the, the excitement in my life and my ingenuity. Like he's a French MacGyver.
I love that MacGyver. I haven't heard of that for a long time.
Yeah, I know what I'll do. I'll get the baby bells.
Le MacGyver.
Le MacGyver.
MacGyver. Oh,
Jeepers.
I love the first wife, though. No, I'm done now, actually. No.
Yeah, I think that. But
no,
I think
she may have been the second wife, because he did have an original partner and he had a child with, but he was 18. And I don't know if they were married. I can't find any details about that person.
Right, okay. So the
let's
one that we know of who flew the
Yeah.
helicopter. I just love her. Like, she goes through all of that, all that effort. I love the fact that they went and picked up the kids. That was funny.
I love that bit, right?
Yeah, that is impressive. Yeah.
Nanopop.
I'll just drop him. We're just going to break him out. Then I'll be back to pick up the kids. Can you just look after him for a couple of hours? Thanks.
The police were out the front, so they drove around the back lane. They took the kids out the back and off they went.
Baby girl prosthetics again. They'll never recognise us.
Have you seen, those makeup shows? I was looking at them the other, not shows, on YouTube, where you've got people who do they're relatively plain to start with, and then they do this incredible makeup job and they transform their face.
Oh, yeah,
but then they take it off, and sometimes they peel down the nose. It's like Baby Bill coming off the nose, like it's wax.
Oh.
And that's why when you said, I heard that, I read that they'd had plastic surgery, all I could imagine was just this peeling off of Baby Bill wax that's then been covered in makeup to make them look like they've got a different shaped nose.
Nicole given the hours. That is my standard go-to prosthetic.
Yeah, she had a prosthetic nose for that. Yeah, look, I'm happy to leave it as I don't know, it's not even a cautionary tale. It's just a crazy tale.
That's just me trying to find something that was,
No
I
murder.
saw this picture and then I figured, there was the Paris and the Olympics and whatever else. So I was like,
yeah, true.
I kind of want to know more about it, really. That's quite often what happens with me. And I'm just looking at this prison that he escaped from. someday.
Does it have a net now, though? Because some of them
It's
have
been around
nets.
for a hell of a long time, and it says there have only been 3 escapes, one in 1927 with a forced release order, 1978, they were killed during his state residency, and then Michel Vaujour escaped in a helicopter, so there you go, because it's got a VIP section.
Right.
The VIP section. The imprisonment of convicted personalities is one of the features of La Santé prison.
Mm.
The area where these well-known people are imprisoned is termed the special area by the administration. But visiting rooms for these prisoners are wonders as for other prisoners, they're nearby. And then it goes on to like list all these famous people. I guess we'd know more of them if we were French, but one of them is the Jackal. I've heard of him.
I've heard of him.
No.
Yeah.
Carlos, where did I read
Is
that
the
last
movie,
time?
yeah.
Yes, Carlos the Jackal is Ramirez Sanchez. And then someone
It's a
down here,
movie.
down the bottom, the last one says Jean-Luc Brunel, the former head of French model agency, who was accused of supplying young girls due to disgrace to
Ugh.
financier Jeffrey Epstein, was found hanged in his cell in 2022.
Ugh.
So it's all going on there.
Mm.
He wasn't in the VIP section.
Could you imagine being VIP section? There's been a couple
I feel like it's A-list. I don't think
luminous-
it's that they're that impressive.
It's
A-list.
No, I
from
don't know
bus
that.
grades.
It's a bit like the Carla, what was it? The VIP section at Virgin Festival where we had A-list.
Loud Lounge.
Loud Lounge, that's it. Yeah.
Loud Lounge is the Loud Lounge of
Loud
prisons.
Lounge, yeah.
They got a couple of blow up things they consider.
The
I don't
top
know.
dogs
I'll
just
tell you
won't
what,
roll.
you'd be very happy if you were in the Louder Lounge if you were in prison, I think, to be able to sit back on a squeaky plastic blow up thing with a durry and
couple of
a
darts,
cool
yeah.
drink. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
All right. Well, that was very entertaining. Thanks, Swanny. And I'll never look at a nectarine the same.
No.
You'll probably hesitate, won't you?
Don't go near it. Don't go near it.
don't.
Don't pull its pin. Don't pull a pin.
I'm
Do
going out to buy some baby bells. You never know what you can do with those things. God.
Let me get there. All right. Good job, Swanny. And as we say every week, miss you already.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.